It's time for Ogre School. Let's get started.
A quick note before we begin. Today's video is sponsored by Jane Austen. Stick around at the end to find out more. So, this is a basic and introductory lesson which will explain some important terms. I will not be asking you to memorize a lot of vocabulary in this class. For most things, I don't care at all if you know the name or proper term for something, as long as you understand the idea. I am way more interested in having you understand things than memorize terms. However, there are a few words and terms that are absolutely fundamental. I will be using these words all year long, and they will appear on the test. So there are a few terms that if you do not know and understand what they mean, you will not be successful in this course. Some of these may be words that are entirely new to you, but many of them are words that you already know, but maybe are used a little differently than you are used to. So, by the end of this video, you need to know exactly what I mean by the following three terms: rhetoric, rhetorical choices, rhetorical situation. When you get to the end, if you don't feel that you could explain these ideas to a friend who didn't watch the video, then you need to go back and watch it again. So, the first off of that list is rhetoric. If you do look this up in the dictionary, you'll get a lot of interesting definitions that may or may not make sense to you. You would also run into a few that would mislead you because, like so many words in the English language, rhetoric has more than one meaning and can be used in lots of different ways. You're going to hear the word rhetoric a lot this year. It is the very core of this class. This is, in fact, a class about rhetoric. Since it is so important, I really want to keep my definition as simple as possible. So here is my definition of rhetoric for the way it will be used in this class. Rhetoric is persuasion. That's it. Any attempt to persuade someone, to change their mind, to convince them, that is rhetoric. So when you hear me say rhetoric, I want your brain to translate that as persuasion. For example, I asked my teacher for a better grade, and apparently my rhetoric was strong enough because I'm making an A now. Or, I used my absolute best rhetoric, but it wasn't enough. My parents still won't give me an allowance of $1,000 a week. See, simple. But it is essential that you remember. The next important term is rhetorical choices. Rhetoric, rhetorical. Rhetoric is the noun, rhetorical is the adjective. So when you call something rhetorical, you are saying that it is used for rhetoric. So rhetorical choices are choices someone makes when trying to persuade. And there are a lot of choices they can make. They might choose to use a specific type of word, or choose to use examples, or choose to use facts, or they might choose to speak in a certain tone. Basically, all of those and so much more counts as rhetoric. Example time. What if a commercial uses sad music and images to make you feel pity and want to help?
In the burning of uncertainty, I will be your solid ground. I will hold the balance if you can't look down.
Hi, I'm Sarah McLaughlin. Please say you'll be the answer for an innocent animal who is suffering right now. An animal...
That is a rhetorical choice. They didn't have to use pathetic-looking dogs and that slow, sad music, but they chose to, because they thought that it would make it more likely that we would donate to their cause. What if a politician uses images of ordinary Americans to make it seem like they care about normal people and not just, themselves?
And let me say to you that I am honored to have been given the opportunity to stand up for the values and the interest of ordinary Americans. My job...
It's morning again in America. Today, more men and women will go to work than ever before in our country's history. With interest rates at about half the record highs of 1980, nearly 2,000 families today will buy new homes, more than at any time in the past 4 years.
That is a rhetorical choice. They don't have to use those types of images, but they chose to because they believe that it persuades people to think more highly of them. What if a college is trying to convince you to enroll in their program and pay them money, of course, and in addition to all the other benefits of a higher education, they include charts about how much money you could end up making? That is a rhetorical choice. They didn't have to include that specific information, but they thought that doing so would make it more likely to persuade you to enroll. If an Axe body spray commercial uses a bunch of scantily clad women to get teenage boys to react via hormones, and buy something that smells like a used gym short came to life and learned how to fart? Yeah, I'm not showing you that in a school video. It is still a rhetorical choice, though. Finally, let's discuss something called the rhetorical situation. When someone is attempting to be persuasive, we use the term rhetorical situation to describe all the important parts to what is happening. I'm just going to mention them briefly here because I will be going into more detail in other lessons. Even though this is not that hard, it does have a lot of parts. So, let's go to the board. Let's imagine that you are attempting to persuade someone to lend you a phone charger and use this to explain the 6 parts of the rhetorical situation. The first element of the rhetorical situation is the author. This is who is doing the persuading. In our phone charger example, the author is you. Second is the audience. This is who the author is trying to persuade. In this case, it is the person you want to lend you the charger. Third is the message. This is what you communicate to them. Fourth is the context. This is what is going on at the time. For example, it might be in the middle of class and they're trying to actually learn and don't want to be distracted. Fifth is the purpose. This is what the author is trying to make happen. In this case, the purpose is to charge the phone. And sixth is the exigence. This is what prompted the author to attempt rhetoric. It is why they felt the need to do it. In this case, it is that the phone is running out of battery. Overall, most of these are fairly normal words that are really not that confusing. I mean, other than exigence, of course. Also, if those last two, purpose and exigence, seem very similar, they are. But there is an important difference. I will have an entire upcoming lesson on just those two, the purpose and the exigence, why they matter, and how they are different. Let me go over the rhetorical situation with one more example. This time, let's assume that your parents are trying to persuade you to help out more cleaning the house. The author is your parents. The audience is you. The message is, help clean the house. The context is that you are busy studying right now and don't have time. The purpose is to persuade you to pick up a broom. The exigence is the filthy nature of your house, that your parents are blaming on you, even though we all know it is actually your little brother's fault. Even if you don't have a little brother, it is still his fault. So, quick wrap up. Rhetoric is persuasion. Rhetorical choices are the things people do to try to persuade. The rhetorical situation is the combination of the author, the audience, the message, the context, the purpose, and the exigence. Speaking of persuasion, my sponsor today is Jane Austen. If you haven't heard of her, she is one of the greatest authors to ever write, which is why I was so excited at the possibility to partner with her for this video. In her lifetime, she published 5 novels, and a 6th novel was published after her death. This last novel tells the story of Anne Elliot, whose family has hit some hard times and has to move to a cheaper home as they struggle to get out of debt. They end up renting their old house to Anne's former fiancé, showing just how far she has fallen. But is there any of that old chemistry left? Find out in the novel Persuasion. Use code OGRE to get an online copy for free at Project Gutenberg. There's a link in the description if you're watching on YouTube. That's all for now. See you next time.